With the Obi Wan Kenobi trailer releasing a couple weeks ago, it made me reflect on Disney's Star Wars sequel trilogy and what they did well and what they didn't do well. But before we begin, subscribe to the YouTube channel right there so you don't miss out on the release of our second feature-length film, The Hollywood Dream. It comes out exclusively on this channel for free, no ads. Who doesn't love that, right? Subscribe so you don't miss out on that. Anyway, back to the video. To start off, I want to quickly mention the good stuff about the sequel trilogy. The obvious being that it is technically, as a movie, it's well made. Each of these movies have some very, very good cinematography, except Force Awakens. That one kind of looked like a TV movie. It kind of looked generic. It's a J.J. Abrams movie. What do you expect? But The Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker, so J.J. Abrams, learned. The last two movies looked very, very good from a cinematic standpoint, especially The Last Jedi. I think The Last Jedi is a really well-shot movie, but the sequel trilogy having very good music too, John Williams never missed, as well as some very good acting, like the Rey interrogation scene. Like, come on, you gotta give Daisy Ridley something there, man. As well as the death scene between Han and, not between Han and Kylo, but like Han dies because of Kylo. That scene was pretty well acted. Pretty emotional, good stuff there. These sequel trilogies have some very, very good set designs, including Snoke's room, like ship room, whatever it's called. It's not really a palace or a throne because this isn't a ship. Anyway, that set was really good. Palpatine's, place looked really, really good too. A very dark and epic. I love it. As well as making Palpatine look very scary. I love when they add some horror elements. Palpatine is a scary dude. Make him look scary. They did just that in his first scene and, every scene that he was in The Rise of Skywalker. Good stuff there. And yeah, speaking of Palpatine, the CGI/makeup, not just on Palpatine, but with everyone and everything, top tier stuff. With everything I just said right now about the good about the sequel trilogy, it's not very, outlandish to say because these are more newer movies. They should be well made, and they are well made. So, if you want to talk about just as movies, all three of these movies are really, really good. But that doesn't mean all three of them are really good Star Wars movies. Let's talk about the bad. So yeah, Palpatine's return, 0 cents. It sucks because it doesn't make 0 sense because how can Palpatine survive? Because in the prequels, it is established that Palpatine either knows or knows of bringing people back to life. Because that was the whole point of Anakin turning to the dark side and, all that mess. So, I could buy into Palpatine actually returning. It's just that it was handled badly because clearly the people that made these movies weren't really thinking about all three movies. They were thinking about one movie at a time, kind of create and react to the responses of the audiences. With that in mind, they kind of hindered the logic of the sequel trilogy. Another issue I have with the sequel trilogy, the fact that our main characters don't have a scene together until the very last movie. That last movie is the only one where they're actually together. I liked that they're all together in the last movie. I think they were a pretty good dynamic. It just sucks that we only got one movie with all of them. And looking back at the sequel trilogy, it kind of is hard to, have them together unless if you rewrite the entire sequel trilogy, which, in my opinion, they should have done. Because by the time the third movie comes out, they want you to feel some kind of connection with all three of them together, or establish that Rey and Poe have this strong bond together, when in reality, we never see that. They just kind of tell us that. And it sucks because it would have been better if we had them interact since the first movie, The Force Awakens. Another trio that should have been together was the original trio. That, once again, if you want to have that happen, you're going to have to rewrite the entire sequel trilogy, especially Force Awakens, because that one involves Luke not being around, because, that plot is trying to find him. So yeah, if you want to fix that, you have to rewrite the story, which, in my opinion, you kind of should, because finding Luke Skywalker doesn't really make sense. Especially considering his whole story arc in, the original trilogy. It makes 0 sense why he would just give up and go away. It's dumb. Unless if you make a good reason, write a really good story behind why he would leave. Which again, they don't really do. So if you really want to look at this, if you want to look at the sequel trilogy right here, okay? The Force Awakens is pretty much a Star Wars carbon copy of A New Hope, which a lot of people don't seem to mind. In my opinion, I kind of do mind. I'm the type of person that prefers a different installment to be different, completely different, for the sake of trying to do something new and not rehash the same old things, you know what I mean? That's my personal opinion. And no, I don't really like The Last Jedi, so don't say I love The Last Jedi. I don't really like The Last Jedi, alright? Because that one was it's kind of, let me get to that point. But anyway, The Force Awakens is a carbon copy. Rian Johnson saw that and was like, you know what, I'm gonna make The Last Jedi be completely different, and by completely different, breaking the logic of The Force Awakens, you know what I mean? The lightsaber, Luke's lightsaber, tosses it away, subverting expectations. Nah, man, that just makes zero sense. Kylo killing Snoke. Okay, that one I kind of do like. I'm sorry, I like that. That was the only acceptable one. Rey being a nobody, I love that, but considering the fact that the whole Force Awakens is heavily dependent on the mystery of whose Rey's parents are, breaks it in The Last Jedi, because in The Last Jedi, they're like, oh, that was kind of dumb. It made everyone in The Force Awakens look pretty stupid. And with all the backlash that The Last Jedi got, J.J. Abrams made The Rise of Skywalker in a response to the bad reception of The Last Jedi, which itself is a response to The Force Awakens being too much like A New Hope. So each movie is a response to each other, instead of it being a cohesive 3-part story. So, to put it in simpler terms, because I myself is confused and I just said everything, but basically what I'm trying to say is that The Last Jedi didn't work because of what was established in The Force Awakens, and The Rise of Skywalker didn't work because of what was established in The Last Jedi. At the end of the day, the entire sequel trilogy don't really work because it contradicts and kind of raises more questions about the gap between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens. For example, how did the new Empire, or what is it called, the First Order, how did they become in power in 30 years? How did Leia and her army or team or whatever you want to call it, like, lose power because they won the war? The Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens, that time gap between raises a lot of questions that The Force Awakens and, subsequent movies don't answer at all. But anyway, with the Obi Wan Kenobi trailer coming out, it makes you realize that, like, Disney isn't really ruining Star Wars. They just didn't plan the sequel trilogy well. They didn't spend any time on it. As soon as they bought the rights, they went into production on the first movie. They didn't really consider, like, what the story would be, you know what I mean? But now, you have different spin-off movies with The Mandalorian and Boba Fett and Ahsoka coming out soon. These spin-off shows are way better. I think it is a better way of handling this property because it doesn't mess with the original timeline, or not timeline, the original story, right? But it's still Star Wars, and it's still iconic characters, and it's still stories that we haven't seen before, as well as it's still feeling like a Star Wars world, So yeah, at the end of the day, the Obi Wan Kenobi really showed that, like, Disney is in their bag when they're making spin-off shows and spin-off movies where it's not tied to the Skywalker saga, but it's still Star Wars, it's still interesting characters, and it's still a lot of fun to see, you know what I mean? In my opinion, they should have waited a little bit more for a sequel trilogy to start happening, just because they just felt like they rushed into it. Let's hope the Obi Wan Kenobi show is pretty good, because it looks pretty good to me. I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a nice day.
You are watching a master.